Hey guys, welcome back for part 2 of the product modeling video. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be covering the UVing of our model that we made in the first part, so the dumbbell. Usually you're set on Maya Classic. So if you go on the top right in the drop-down menu, we're going to go to UVing, UV editing, or I believe you can get there through Windows Workspaces and UV editing. So you're going to get a window that looks like this, a grid, and then your UV toolkit. So the purpose of UVing is so that you can set up your textures properly and that they won't be stretched. So if you click on an object, you can see these squares represent your texture, which is this little button on the right here. So you can see if I were to put well, let's use this. This is the picture that it's applying right now. This little grid, and it says UV, V1, and all of this stuff. There's lots of stretching on these faces, whereas this face is nice, and all of the squares are square. So what the purpose of what we're going to do now is to change every face so that it's there won't be any stretching, and all our textures will display properly. So an easy way to UV is we're just going to select faces that face in the same direction. So like these 6 faces here, we're going to go to create, and I'm going to hit plane near. So plane near is just one camera angle. It'll take one shot. So when I do that, you can see now we have a perfect UV, and the text is here and there's no stretching. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this up to the side, and I'm just moving it away for now. We'll deal with it later. If you don't move them off to the side, they all stack up, and then it's kind of hard to see what's what. So I'm just going to quickly go around here, and I'm going to click and then shift double click to get this loop. All right. Actually, what we're going to, I forgot that we have all these other little corners and angles that I'm going to add. So I shift click this one, and then shift double click in this direction to select the loop. And now I just got to go to each corner here and select those 2. Select 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, and there should be one more. 1, 2. All right, so now I'm just going to hit plane near again, and we got all of that as 1. That's perfect. So I'm going to do that for this loop, and double shift click for that loop, and there's going to be one on the top because we put the bevel there. Perfect. So for this one, it is on an angle. But if we use a planer, there's minimal stretching. So you can choose this if you're doing it quick, or if you're really picky, you can do these 3 segments at a time, and then there's no stretching. All your squares are perfect. So you'll have to go in and select all of these and use planar there. So that's for those ones. You'll have to do this whole thing. I'll do that after, but I'll just like cut it out as I'm doing it, so you're not sitting there and watching me do it for so long. But I'll show you how to do the this middle part, the cylindrical part. So looking at it, it's actually not terrible, but we're just going to quickly UV it our own way. So I'm going to click and drag over this part so I get the whole cylindrical part, and then I'm going to hit cylindrical, and it's going to look really weird, but there's this little white T on the bottom on this side that when you hover over it, it goes yellow. I'll do that again. So if you click that, it's going to bring out a transform tool, and like this. And we're going to click this ring around the gizmo, which is going to bring up our rotate tool. Now we're just going to rotate this 90 degrees this way. My apologies. So that it is straight-ish, like so. Now, it's still a little bit wobbly, so what we can do is if we go into unfold, there's this straighten UV button. So if we hit straighten UVs, it straightens out our UVs for us. So now we can move that to the side. And you'll do the same thing here on this side for cylindrical, and rotate it somewhat close, straighten UVs, move it away, and then this front face we can just do planar, like so. All right, I'm going to quickly UV this and I'll be right back. Okay, when you're done, your model should somewhat look like this, UV'd. I just moved them all to the side. Then we got the middle one and we got the other one. So a couple pro tips that you can use in the future is if you have one UV'd and you have an identical object, you could always just delete and drag that object, and then the UVs will already be applied. Also, for this object, because we have so many tiny little lines here, going back, it would have been smarter to do all of the slight bevels afterwards, because adding edge loops doesn't affect your UVs. So if I were to select this middle part and add a cut down the middle, it automatically adds it into your UV. So it doesn't matter. So it would have been easier making this very blocky and then adding the slight bevel. But for future, that's where it pays to think ahead. Okay, so when you have everything UV'd, now there's this thing called textile density. It's pretty much on the simplest form to make all of your UV shells, which is each one of these is a UV shell, proportionate to the other. So like this one is way bigger than all the other ones. You can see the text is smaller. So it'll just make everything the same size so that your textures won't be big on one side, small on the other side, especially if you have text like roughness on them or height maps and stuff. So we're just going to select our whole object, and then I'm just going to set this to 5.12 and then the map size of 2048, which is 2K, and it's going to shrink them all down. We can probably actually go a bit bigger than that. If I go 1024 for a map, let's see, and then we'll just keep, I'm just going to keep moving these up until we can see them a little bit better because they're super small. Usually you have, when you're working, you have a set textile density that you need to be to. We could probably even drop this to a 512 map because the object is so small, and I could just drop this at like 70, which our goal here is to fit all of these UV shells into one UV square, this first one. All of them have to fit in there without going over the line. So you just want to slowly try to organize everything in here, or you can select everything, go to arrange and layout, and Maya has this button here that if you, I believe it's shift left click, it'll bring up these options, and we're just going to change our options to what you see here. So unfold 3D, 256, 3, step rotation 90 degrees, and just go through this list here. You can pause the video on it, make sure yours are the same. And then when we hit layout, it's going to pack our UVs for us. See? All done. Everything is in 0 to 1 space, and our UVs are good to go for beginning to texture. So we'll just save that file, and the next one we'll export this out and bring it into Substance Painter.